Welcome to the Harvesting Wisdom podcast. Together we explore the vast landscapes of life, delving into the rich soil of experiences, sowing the seeds of curiosity, and harvesting the profound wisdom that each episode unfolds. Hello again, and welcome to another podcast of Harvesting Wisdom. Today I am in, not sure what island we're on here.
We are heading for Fernandina Island now.
Fernandina Island in Ecuador, in an area that is where we just passed the big volcano, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The large volcano. I'm here today with my guest, Fernando Ortiz. Okay. And Fernando is on the ship with me, and it's the National Geographic Voyager 2.
Islander 2.
Islander 2, excuse me. And today you just gave a talk on both the geology and the oceanography of this area.
Yes.
I hope I caught it with that camera. I don't know, it might not be loud enough. But you've taken me out on a few nature walks, excursions, rides on the water. How long have you been in this area? Did you grow up in this area?
No, I wasn't born in Galápagos. I was born in Guayaquil, Ecuador.
Okay.
And I have lived here most of my life now. I came here in 1989, so that's 35 years. And all the time, working for the Galápagos Islands in one capacity or another.
Right. And you're on this boat. You're called a naturalist.
Yes.
Like Charles Darwin and that time frame.
That's a tall comparison, but well, yeah.
He was an observer. That's I think the biggest thing, right? And looking at, and in 35, I guess. One question I would have for you is, in 35 years, what changes have you seen? Do you actually see the effects? Because you're kind of out in the middle of the ocean. You're 600 miles from the coast of Ecuador. And you're getting trade winds from every direction, right? And you're getting ocean currents also moving around. So it's probably harder in some ways to determine the effects, because your effects are always changing no matter what. But what do you see in 35 years? What do you see the difference?
I have to say something. That can be a complex answer. Mostly because we are in a protected area, and the Galápagos, the Ecuadorian government has been pretty good at trying to keep the islands as pristine as possible. Mm-hmm. They are not pristine anymore because we have introduced species, we have people living on some of the islands, etc. But most of the national park area, most of our species, which are found nowhere else on Earth, they are endemic to the archipelago, etc., they are still with us. And those are really good indicators. We haven't lost anything, or we haven't lost much to development. Only 3% of the entire land territory of the archipelago can be used for something other than, conservation, city, quarry, or roads or things like that. And those areas are managed. I wouldn't say perfectly managed, but they are managed. And so the influence that they may have in the surrounding protected area has been somehow sorted out. It's a threat though, it may change in the future, but so far, so good. So most of the changes that we have seen can be explained due to climatological processes, and not necessarily climate change. Some things may be associated to climate change, but we are lucky enough
that because of the way that you explain, because of what you explained before, we have different winds affecting us, we have different currents affecting us, and we are right at the equator. We haven't felt climate change that much. There are some things out there, but let's say we haven't suffered climate change as of yet.
Okay, sure. So we're and the acidification of the oceans and everything else is probably more intense in other areas as well that are shallower. We were just along the cliff of one of the volcanoes, and it was 10,000 feet deep.
Yeah.
And so it's so there's not much that's really what you would consider fragile there, right? You've got at least 3 different layers of waters, each with their own attributes.
Yeah.
And you had just explained how the crashing into of the island, which is what the ocean is doing, is actually compressing the water, and you're getting what you call an upwelling.
Yes,
correct?
exactly. Uh-huh.
And that's really where a lot of the life is from this area. But it's interesting to me when we talk about endemic species, right? These volcanic islands were formed, well, they're constantly forming, and they're starting and they're ending, but probably would be about 32 million years ago. Is that right?
No, the oldest island in Galápagos is considered to be only about 4 million years
Oh,
old.
4 million.
Yeah,
okay.
they are
So it's very new.
very new.
So when you talk
geologically
about
speaking.
an endemic species, that's okay. When they came up, they were molten lava, right? So it's kind of hard to determine, what was natural. Obviously, 4 million years ago, that was the beginning of life on the planet anyway, right in that time frame, maybe a little before with cyanobacteria.
Yeah.
And then, with all the different microbes and everything else. So I guess the Galápagos is not, it was as new to life as most of the places on the planet. So but how do you determine, or how do biologists determine what came in versus, obviously the new plants and animals that you see, it's obvious that because you've cataloged so
Yeah,
many.
exactly. Yeah.
But how about the endemic species? What
Yeah. The endemic species, we know they are endemic, and now we are more than sure that they are endemic. Number one, originally, because they look slightly different than their ancestors back in South America. Okay? Endemism is given by isolation. So, if you have a population of, let's say, giant tortoises, we see the tortoises here, and we know there are tortoises in South America as well. But the ones we have here are so different that you can tell they are already different species that have not been in contact with their ancestor back in South America for long enough to drift genetically and become something entirely different. Let's elaborate a little bit more on the Galápagos giant tortoise. The Galápagos giant, we know right now through DNA analysis that the ancestor of the Galápagos giant tortoise is something called the El Chaco tortoise, not giant, in the northern part of Chile. Okay, and that's an animal that is probably this big, maybe 50, 60 pounds, no more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And they probably arrived floating on a raft of vegetation. That's what we are assuming. We know also that tortoises, even though they don't swim well, land tortoises, they don't swim well, they float quite well. So maybe a pregnant female arrived here some million years ago, and once. That female arrived only once, so that female laid her eggs, and we have a new species deriving only from that particular mother that brought her own eggs with her, and probably
she had her own little characteristics, and that made her already something special by itself. If she kept on inbreeding, those particular characteristics that were hers now are not only hers, but they belong to the entire population that came after her.
And that's kind of the subtle difference between crossbreeding and evolution, right? When you bring a species onto the island and there's something similar and they crossbreed, you get a completely new species. So we saw the Professor Tom yesterday talking about the evolution of islands, and what's so really kind of wild is how many new species and then how many species are being, going extinct.
Yeah.
And that's been going on since the planet really had life on it.
Yeah.
So the question really is that extinction of the species now, how do you determine whether or not there's a difference in biodiversity? I think that's the primary issue at hand now is that as we're losing more and more species, the scientists have been thinking that with the lack of biodiversity, the planet won't evolve the same way as it has in the past.
Yeah, biodiversity is vital because we need many different species and their interactions in order to have a healthy environment. And a healthy environment is something we depend on. Sometimes, we were talking about that yesterday when we were having lunch. We are very comfortable in our own urban environment. We have created our own things, and we think, as I tried to, make it graphic yesterday, some people think that the water originates in the faucet. There is this total disconnection with the natural world. But we need to, biodiversity, a big healthy biodiversity is one of the elements that keeps the processes of planet Earth ongoing in a way that it's going to benefit us.
It just makes us more adaptable.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if we don't have all that biodiversity when the next ice age or the next global warming or whatever disaster happens,
Yeah.
you just don't have that one species that could have
Yeah, it could make the difference.
us
Yeah,
continue
for survival,
on. So,
no. Yeah.
well, I appreciate, I'm going to get your information. I might continue this remotely.
Yeah.
I appreciate you being here today. My
problem.
guest today is Socrates, and that's how I pronounce it.
Yeah,
How do you
that's
pronounce
good.
it? Okay. And
Socrates in Spanish,
Socrates.
Socrates in English.
Okay, Socrates, and what's your last name?
Tomala,
Tomala.
yes.
Okay, and you're from Ecuador.
I'm from the Galápagos Islands.
Oh, you're from the Galapagos.
Yeah, from Santa Cruz Island.
Okay, so Santa Cruz, we toured.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful island. I loved watching it. It's the parallels so amazing because the idea of pressing sugar and sugar cane and growing the coffee, same things we're doing over in Africa, and watching people do things by hand, and the quality is so much different.
For sure.
People just don't understand that. But so you grew up in that island. Seems to me there's 4 islands that have a population on them.
Yes, that's correct.
Here, and you're now an ambassador of National Geographic, and is it
Lindblad, National
Lindblad.
Geographic, yeah.
Lindblad. So I was telling my wife, you're the voice of Ecuador. You're the voice of the Galapagos. You could be. You're definitely a great orator. It's probably kind of easy that you're talking about something you're so passionate in. But you're either you could be a great statesman or just a good salesman.
For sure, for sure. That's what they tell me. Yeah.
But your job here and we're on the National Geographic Islander II, and you're kind of the main person on. You've got a lot of people each with their own jobs, but you're kind of the coordinator from my observation anyway, keeping everybody in check on the boat. But you're only on the boat maybe half the time, and then there's someone else who kind of takes your position. So tell me about your vision. What's your background? What's your education?
Well, when I was growing up on Santa Cruz, I wanted to be close to nature, so I became a volunteer in a number of different fields at the Charles Darwin Research Station. Started out with insects. I like beetles very much, and there are not so many beetles on my home island, but we have some ladybugs, and we have some dirt beetles that come out every rainy season. So I help collect samples, for the department at the Charles Darwin Research Station where they study them. And then I switched to marine biology. So this is all after school. So I was in high school, and then in the afternoons I would go to the Charles Darwin Research Station and help around. And also in marine biology with the sea turtles. I helped tag some of the turtles and also put like flags on the nesting sites. And then I thought I could do this for a living. I want to do this. And one thing led to another. I went to school, I studied biology, and I participated in a number of different programs during my life, even helping tag sharks for some time. And little by little, I transitioned to tourism. When I met my wife, my life changed. I wanted to be more time home than in the field. And tourism is like the perfect marriage because I can be in the natural world, but I can also have time, to do my personal projects and, to have a family and enjoy my time at home as well.
Sure. And there's an important job with tourism too, because I just was talking with Dr. McFarland. A lot of people, I podcast with a lot of different people from all over, from Africa and Europe and the US, and now in South America. I'm going to Colombia. A good friend of mine is a rose farmer and works there, and we are involved with hemp seed through my other company, the soil company. And I think hemp is going to be very important as a remediator that goes really deep. So I have, with our soil company, we have got over 30 different products. One of them, which by the way, we named it Amazonian Dark Earth. So Amazonian Dark Earth is basically biochar. And there was a civilization a long, long time ago that did just fine.
Terra Preta.
Right, exactly.
In Brazil.
So, and the idea is, it's just, you're taking organic matter and it's fermenting without oxygen. The Amazon did it in millions of years. We do it in the U.S. and now in Africa they do it in about 8 to 10 days, just burning solid woods and without oxygen. So we're putting it usually in the dirt and doing it, and it's an amazing product because once you crush it all up, it's got a lot of surface area, so it's good. It's a good for drainage, but it also holds all the microbiology within it. So and it holds 5 to 10 times its weight in water. So we have a drought mix that we use, which is compost, warm compost, and then it also has zeolite, it has biochar, a couple other ingredients, and we sell that commercially to large farmers, large-scale farmers and gardeners and that kind of thing, and it really does make a difference. A plant like hemp goes down 2.5 meters. So you go into an area, the Amazon of course has the mycelium network that's running throughout, but in areas that are high in calcium carbonate or in what we call caliche, which is in Mexico and Arizona, it'll break through that. Fungus also breaks through, but fungus takes a little bit more time, right? So the parallels that I see are pretty great. We talked about most of the life in the oceans are on the edges. So some of that dust or soil gets in on the ledges and it feeds the algae, and the algae's, you've got the same process we use in composting, is you've got movement creating oxygen and the water. And so in the water, it's all about zooplankton, and that's kind of the keystone similarity to soil with the microbes. But with what you're studying here now, you've gone to tourism, but you're still you're kind of educating the tourists. So this trip is not like a normal trip. And I talked to Donald, when I go to Africa, it's usually, sometimes I stay in nice places, but usually not super comfortable. And I asked him, and he laughed, because he's usually in caves someplace, right? So it's not the same thing. And I said, this is pretty nice.
Yeah,
this is luxury, right?
It is.
But it's an important thing, just like with the podcast we're doing now, because we're getting people who are interested in their world, right?
For sure.
And that's what the deal is. It's their world, and we're getting them to understand and appreciate the living world around them, right? So, what's been your? Do you still go back and do, or is this it at this point? This is got to be pretty exhausting.
Oh, well, I have so many things that I do in my life, but this is the only company I work for. So I work here and also in the Upper Amazon in Peru, and from time to time in Egypt and Jordan. So that takes up about 4.5 months of the year for me. So I break them in weeks here and there. And when I'm back home, I'm a very busy man. I co-run a non-profit there. And my wife and I, it's called Forest for Tomorrow. Small thing now that we hope to make it a little larger. And we're buying up land from farmers, and we turn in the pasture, because when the farmers came, they turned most of it into pasture for the cattle. But the problem there in the cloud forest where I live, in between the high Andes and the ocean, is that is a very important corridor for species from the coast to the high Andes and even to the Amazon. So mountain lions, Andean bears, a number of different small cats like ocelots, they walk through the forest, and now that these patches of forest are gone, they have to go through roads or through barbed wires, and that is complicated. Little by little we're fragmented the area. So my wife and I and some friends started it, and we do fundraising locally because we're not a 501c3 yet, hopefully one day. And we talk to people that are interested, and we buy up land, and it's owned by the organization, right? So we don't have ownership as personal ownership. And in the future, we want to develop some ecotourism in the area. So that's our.
That's great. Well, pasture, people don't realize pasture lands, I'm not going to say they're more important, because every biome is important. And now we have, I don't think we're even calling them biomes anymore, because the way the world has been fragmented, there's so many different, I can't remember the term, but there's multiple biomes now that, because they're more microcosms, right? But pasture land is considered by many to be more important than the forest for so many different reasons, for the microbiology underneath, and for the production of oxygen, but also the ability for more animals and to cover it. But also you're covering it by the square inch instead of by every 20 to 30 feet or whatever. So
the only problem there is that the pasture has replaced the natural habitat of a lot of species. So there is literally a gap. So in between this patch of forest that is very healthy, that has different layers, because the forest has different layers.
Sure. So reforestation starts small.
Exactly.
And
it's just for all the animals to be able to walk through and connect to these corridors. Because unfortunately, it still happens in Ecuador that when they see a mountain lion in the area and they have cattle, they shoot the mountain lion. Or if there is an ocelot and there are chickens around, they shoot the ocelot, even though the ocelot doesn't want anything to do with the chicken. It's just passing by. Well, it's going to eat a capybara, it's going to eat an agouti, or any of the small rodents that we have. but people still think in their minds that those animals are going to harm some of the
Are
cattle.
people hunting in the
It's not allowed.
Amazon for
It's
food?
not allowed to hunt in some areas. Some areas you can, but not these species for sure. But they say it's for protection.
Yeah. I mean, from a standpoint of villagers needing food, so they go into the.
No, not in these places. It's not allowed to hunt. In like the place where I live has a reserve. It's a biosphere reserve, so it's not allowed to hunt there. But if you have a property that is just in between two patches of forest, and then obviously the Andean bear doesn't know that it doesn't have to go through there, and then they feel like, oh, the bear is going to attack me, and then things happen. So that's sort of the point of having
Creating a bridge.
Exactly. So they don't have to go through somebody's property, but we buy up the land. Land in Ecuador is not so expensive, so you could buy 2 acres of land for like $20,000, and you do the right funding, you can do it, and little by little you are planting trees back, and the place gets all the moisture from the ocean, so we don't need to irrigate or anything. Naturally regrows. So if you let it grow, it will regrow.
Yeah. And it's interesting what you were talking about is that fragmentation, and I see maybe the Amazon that being maybe the worst thing that could be happening. They call it the fishbone or the fish skinner, where roads get cut through, or neighborhoods get put in, or a dam goes in, or whatever. And it's that because that mycelium network underneath gets disconnected. That's one thing.
Exactly.
But then the barrier for crossing, that the biology has been used to going back and forth for millions of years, and now it's been severed. So doing that is great. Anyone who's listening and wants to donate, I do have the 501c. So if they want to donate, I can send the money your way until you have your 501c.
Yeah. In Ecuador, the 501c3 status doesn't exist. So you have to file for incorporation in the U.S., in Delaware, and then get it to turn into a 501c3. That's what we want to do in the future. We want to take what we have here, incorporate it in the U.S., and then. But we need a little more, more people, because now it's my wife, me, and a couple of friends, and we do work a job that is not bad. So we need to have a little more time. So in the future, I want to dedicate more time and actually be on the forefront and actually collect more funds to be able to protect more forests, because we all benefit from a healthy forest.
Sure.
It regulates the weather pattern. The forest creates its own rain, so it's
Wind
really
blocks,
important.
soil,
Absorbs and sequesters carbon.
Sure.
It fixes nitrate into the soil, so it's important and something that we should care about. And it's a nice way of like giving back to Mother Earth. Mother Earth nourishes us all, gives us water, food.
Offset your carbon footprint.
Exactly.
For sure.
And as I said yesterday when I was talking, we are so dependent on nature. Nature is not dependent on us. So if we just take humans out of the equation, I'll tell you, a few thousand years, the Earth is back to what it was.
During COVID, I remember videos of waterways that have been filthy for 100 years being clear, sitting to the bottom. I remember driving down into LA and for the first time actually seeing the city when I was driving from upward, kind of that Claremont McKenna College where they are.
San Gabriel Mountains.
From there down, you could very rarely see, and I saw it clear as a bell. So, without human intervention. But I think, the world is, from an optimistic standpoint, that we're adaptable people. It's just a matter of getting this consciousness involved. But now on this boat, and I'll wrap up here with you pretty quick because you got other things.
Yeah, I have to make it.
But on this, you're basically on here for a month, and your day is nonstop. You're almost like herding. I have a lot of employees, so it's like I call it herding chickens. Right.
It's like herding marine iguanas, running in different directions.
Right. They all have their own mind, but I think it's great fun. It's entertainment, and it's also luxury on board. Environmentally, there's very few places like this, and maybe no place like this on the planet, right? But what do you see? I think most people are coming here to gain some of that knowledge.
Yeah, I would say so. I think people who travel with this company, National Geographic or Lindblad, they even if they don't know about these geographies, they want to learn about them. And I think in some way, they always have that question in the back of their mind: how can we help? Because people who travel with us have the means to help.
Sure.
And most of the time, they realize how special the world is and how all of us are in this together. You know, we're all citizens of the same planet. And having this position here, I have the privilege of talking to these people that are capable of making a big difference. So for me, it's really important to be able to stand
You never know
speak to them.
what that one person on board
Exactly.
might change the trajectory.
And that has happened many times. You know, many people have made some very important donations economically to the Charles Darwin Research Station, to the National Park, after listening to the problems that we're dealing with. Because as I said yesterday, we're dealing with the same problems that you guys are dealing with back home: overpopulation,
world, right?
pollution, climate change. So this is a pretty special place, and we still have the opportunity to do something about it. In some places, we will have to work really hard to revert it. Here, we just have to keep it because it's already doing really well.
Yeah.
So that opportunity of being able to talk to people and to create like some kind of awareness about the world, it's really a privilege for me. I enjoy it very much.
You know, the one you were talking about, the different Charles Darwin books, and one of his best sellers in the mid-1800s was his book on vegetable worms.
Mhm.
Did you read that?
Mhm.
On worms.
Mhm.
And it's really still a comprehensive book on earthworms, and it's kind of the principle that he doesn't talk about the technique, but we do vermiculture.
Right.
So in one building, it's a farm building that we have, which is 1.5 acres under foot.
Mhm.
I have billions of worms that are eating compost and creating
Right.
vermicompost. But he has detailed everything about the worm's digestive system, reproduction system, how it breathes through the skin and the water, and how it's denuded the planet. It moves more dirt than all the construction companies in the world combined. So it's amazing some of the work he did, and that's part of the history of the Galápagos. And I'm glad you were able to share that with us.
Yeah, it
And,
was a pleasure.
get- Thank you for joining the Harvesting Wisdom podcast. Click subscribe and like for ongoing insightful conversations. Explore our webpage for show notes and additional resources. Visit our guests' webpage for deeper insights. Your engagement is the foundation of our journey, and until next time, keep pursuing wisdom.